Archaeologists have discovered countless artefacts over the years, all of which have succeeded in furthering our understanding of and giving us a glimpse into the turbulent era known as the Viking Age. In no particular order, here are just 5 of the most fascinating of those finds. Number 1. The Oseberg Ship. This elaborate ship burial was discovered on and subsequently named after the Oseberg farm in Vestfold, Norway in the early 1900s. Dating back to around 834 AD, 2 female skeletons were interred in the magnificently preserved longship, along with a vast array of grave goods, including 4 decorated sleighs, a beautifully carved 4-wheel wooden cart, agricultural and household tools, textiles such as wool and imported silk, and a carved bedpost. One of the women buried inside the ship was around 80 years old, and her remains showed signs of severe arthritis and other maladies. The other was around 50 to 55 years of age and had a broken collarbone. This initially led archaeologists to assume that she was a human sacrifice, killed to accompany her mistress into the afterlife. However, more recent studies proved that the injury had been healing for several weeks. It is still unclear whether these women were related, perhaps mother and daughter, or that one was indeed a sacrifice. The opulence of this burial and the grave goods shows that at least one of these women was of a very high status. One wore a fine red dress made of wool with a lozenge twill pattern, a luxury commodity back then, and a white veil. The other wore a plainer wool dress, blue in colour, and a wool veil, possibly denoting that she was lower in status. Although the identities of the 2 women will never truly be confirmed, many experts theorise that the eldest could have been Queen Asa, mother of Halfdan the Black and the grandmother of Harald Fairhair. Recent tests on the remains showed that they both came from Agder in Norway during the same period as Queen Asa supposedly did. 14 horses and 3 dogs also accompanied the ladies on their final journey. Aside from being one of very few almost perfectly intact Viking ships ever discovered, the grave goods found on the Oseberg ship give us great insight into Norse burial rites during that time period. The silk proves the importation of luxury goods, and the other fabrics are one of very few examples of Viking age textiles, their colours allowing us a glimpse into the types of garments people wore back then. More recent studies on the human remains yielded interesting results in terms of DNA too. The younger woman's ancestors apparently came to Norway from Iran. Sadly, there wasn't enough usable DNA with which to decipher a link between the 2 women. However, evidence of their wealth was even present in their very bones. Fish formed the biggest part of Viking age people's diets, but these individuals both ate a high quantity of meat, which was a massive luxury. One of the bedposts shows one of the only examples of the Valknut room. Number 2. The Gjermundbu Helmet. Discovered in Haugsbygd, Norway, by accident in 1943, the Gjermundbu helmet is famous as the only Viking Age helmet ever to have been successfully reconstructed from its own fragments. It was originally found in 9 fragments and subsequently restored. Made of iron with a peaked cap made from 4 plates and dating back to the 900s, it is also the only Viking Age helmet actually discovered in Scandinavia. Other precious artefacts found alongside the sword include an almost intact chainmail, 3 swords, one of which is decorated with a silver inlay, 3 axes, 3 spearheads, riding equipment, and game pieces and dice. 2 burnt male skeletons indicating cremation were found alongside these, and many more objects. One of these men is believed to have been a petty king from the Ringerike area of Norway. In addition to being one of the most unique and precious of all Viking Age artefacts, the Gjermundbu helmet can tell us a lot about the style of helmets during this period, as well as their material composition. The fact that it is the only one found in Scandinavia also raises interesting questions, such as whether or not iron helmets like this were reserved only for kings or those going a Viking, as some have been found in other parts of Europe and in the UK. Number 3. The Vimose Comb. The Vimose Comb, found in Vimose, Denmark, dates back to around 160 CE. It is very well preserved, and it is considered to be one of the most precious objects from this period due to the runes carved on it. The runes carved on the Vimose Comb are the earliest unambiguous example of a runic inscription ever found. Scholars believe that from the way in which they were written, it suggests that this runic alphabet was being used for at least 100 years prior to these runes being carved by an unknown person. The runes translate to Harja, meaning comb, or possibly warrior. Number 4. The Ulfberht Swords. Although these weapons presumably originated somewhere in Germany, a high volume of the approximately 170 known Ulfberht swords discovered were found in Scandinavia, usually in warrior graves. Their style is considered a transitional point between Viking and high medieval knightly swords. They are all inscribed with the name Ulfberht, which was a Frankish or possibly Germanic name, if derived from the High German name Wolfbert, for example. Despite not being Scandinavian in origin, and not all of the swords being forged in the Viking Age, they were clearly highly sought after and prized by Viking warriors. The name Ulfbert being inscribed on so many weapons, many of which were made at various times in various locations and by various different blacksmiths, also shows evidence of one of the earliest examples of a trademark of sorts. Sadly, we will never know who the original Ulfbert was. Number 5. The Lewis Chessmen. Found on the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides, Scotland, in the 1800s, and subsequently named after the bay in which they were found, the Lewis Chessmen are a group of distinctive 12th century chess pieces. Intricately carved, mostly from walrus ivory, some from whale teeth, they were probably made in Trondheim, Norway. This is assumed due to the fact that similar carvings can be found in Nidaros Cathedral in Trondheim, and shields similar to those depicted on the chessmen were found on other chess pieces unearthed on Hitra Island, situated in the mouth of Trondheimfjord. The lack of wear suggests that they may have been the stock of a travelling trader. The 78 pieces consist of 8 kings, 8 queens, 16 bishops, 15 knights, 12 rooks, and 19 pawns. Interestingly, 4 of the rooks are depicted as fierce berserkers biting their shields. The Lewis Chessmen prove a trade link between Scandinavia and the Outer Hebrides, which were under Norwegian control at the time. The intricacy and quality of workmanship is an amazing example of Viking Age crafting. It has also enabled experts to better understand the types of games played during this period and their use in planning battle strategies. The pieces also depict almost perfect imitations of real armour worn in Norway during that time. Some of the pieces bore traces of a red stain, possibly used to differentiate between each opponent.